On-ride photos are a popular item for both park guests and parks themselves. For guests, it's an awesome way to commemorate their first time on a roller coaster, showing that they conquered their fears, or they can commemorate a silly pose that they made. For parks, it's a lucrative way to capitalize on the popularity of their star attraction and families who want to make lasting memories. For me to buy an on-ride photo, there has to be a story associated with it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about my favorite on-ride photos that I've ever gotten. The earliest one that I really enjoy is this one from Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce. When we got to Boulder Dash in 2001, I was terrified to ride it. I hadn't ridden a roller coaster nearly that tall or fast. So I sent my dad to go on it before I did, just to test the ride for me. He said I'd enjoy it, and he was right. So we got in line and rode together in the front row. And as you can see, I loved the ride. What I didn't realize until looking at this photo recently though was the kid behind me flipped off the camera. I never noticed that even though I had looked at this photo for 20 years on my wall. I found that kind of funny. The next photo I want to talk about is the first time that I rode Steel Force at Dorney Park. I was actually terrified to ride Steel Force all day. Up to that point, the tallest coaster I'd ever ridden was Great Bear at Hershey Park, and Steel Force was nearly 100 feet taller. I debated whether or not I should go on this coaster, but much like Boulder Dash, I decided to just bite the bullet and get on it, and I loved the coaster. This was also the largest coaster my dad had ever ridden, and we both enjoyed it. We rode hands up and loved it. We ended up riding the coaster several times that day. This is a photo of my friend and I riding Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure with a temperature at about 15 degrees. And there's an interesting story behind this. Originally, we were going to go to Six Flags New England, but for Six Flags New England's holiday in the park, neither Wicked Cyclone nor Superman Run, so it wasn't too appealing for us to go to the park with the two signature attractions closed. I jokingly suggested that we should do a day trip to Six Flags Great Adventure, and my friend had no objections. So we left at about 6 a.m., got to the park, and we had a great day riding things, start to finish with no lines. Meanwhile, we looked at Six Flags New England and we're glad we didn't go there because every single ride was pretty much closed except the SLC. And this caused Riddler Revenge to have nearly an hour wait all day. That was laughably bad. So at the end of the night, we were riding Nitro and the temperature went down to the teens. We were the only two people on the train, and as a result, Nitro was crawling through the first half. I genuinely thought we were going to valley. When we got to the mid-course brake run, it was deactivated, so we flew through it. Now, Nitro's return run usually feels pretty controlled. You get some nice floater airtime, but nothing crazy. Well, if the mid-course trim is off, you get some Fury 325 level of airtime on those return runs, and we loved it. We kept praying that no one else would get in the train so we could keep getting that level of airtime. Eventually, we had to bow out because we got so cold, but we had to buy the photo showing our stupidity for doing a day trip down to New Jersey and marathoning Nitro with the temperature in the teens. One of my other favorite on-ride photos was also from last year. This one is from Cedar Point on Top Thrill Dragster. Any Top Thrill Dragster photo looks amazing because the force of the launch shoves your hair back. But this one was extra special because this was my girlfriend's first time on Top Thrill Dragster. Her previous tallest coaster was Fury 325, and she was really proud of herself for conquering that ride. But Top Thrill Dragster was a whole new level of fear for her because of how fast that launch was and how there was a chance it could roll back. That was one thing she was praying she wasn't going to get. So when we launched, she was absolutely terrified and screaming. Just look at this photo. But believe it or not, this was her favorite ride all of Cedar Point, and she wanted to keep re-riding this all day. Much in the same vein as Top Thrill Dragster, the on-ride photo for Formula Rossa was a classic. Not only does the ride have an even stronger launch than Top Thrill Dragster, but it did something even crazier to my hair. I didn't even know my hair could stand up that tall. And if you look at your cheeks get pressed back as well, and it's just hysterical looking at the on-ride photos for this ride. I also like how on the top left you have that girl who's just smiling innocently while everyone else is just blown away by the acceleration on this ride. Now this is probably one of my funnier on-ride photos. This is from the back row of Bandit last year. Everyone always told me Bandit at Movie Park Germany was one of the roughest rides in the world. I rode it up front, and I didn't think it was too bad. It was slow, but it didn't beat me up. So I decided to go in the death seat. I rode in the very back on a wheel seat. And you know what? I actually enjoyed the ride. That's not a smile of me trying to mask the pain. No, I genuinely didn't hate the ride. But I think I have a higher tolerance for rough rides than most people, because look at the person next to me. I don't speak German, but I'm pretty sure he was cursing over there, and he looked to be in a lot of pain when we got off this ride. I also really like the on-ride photos I got from Do-Dodonpa. For my first ride, my friend and I got really lucky to get the front row, and the acceleration on that ride is every bit as good as people say. It feels like you're rammed in the back by a semi-truck, so we had to get the on-ride photo to commemorate the force of that launch. And not only that, Do-Dodonpa takes your photo not once, not twice, but 3 times through the course of the layout. And you get that all for a cheap price of, I think it was like $6 or $7 for these photos, which was awesome. Now this is one of my funnier on-ride photos, if you can even call it a ride. In my first visit to Universal Studios Japan, there was a massive earthquake in the morning, so unfortunately both Flying Dinosaur and Hollywood Dream were down for the day. As a result, we had a lot of time to try every single attraction in the park, and eventually we stumbled into something called Monster Hunter. We thought this would be some sort of haunt. Instead, it was this really bizarre photo shoot. The employees would tell us to pose in all these weird ways in front of a green screen. And then they added these weird weapons to our hands and gave us complimentary photos as we left. We had absolutely no clue what was going on and couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation. One of the other on-ride photos that I enjoy was for a really bad day at a park. This was the most recent time I visited La Feria de Chapultepec in Mexico City. I talked about this in my particular review for this park, but the second time I went to this park, every single major ride was closed. The wooden coaster, Chimera, the shuttle loop, the haunted house, the drop tower, nothing big was open. The best ride that was open at the park that day was the Los Troncos Log Flume, so I rode it quite a few times. And this log flume was sort of bad in some ways, but it was so bad it was funny. The Tro had barely any water in it, so you almost bottomed out and barely made it through the course. And the course passed the park's junkyard, which the park made no efforts to hide. There was also a tunnel midway through the ride that you had to duck to avoid hitting your head. And then there was the drop. This drop was profiled so bizarrely that I can't think of any other log flume quite like it. It's really shallow, and then it starts pulling out ridiculously early despite how shallow the drop is. The only drop I can think of that looks sort of similar is the boat chute at Lake Winnie, and that ride is nearly 100 years old. This log flume is not. So after a day of riding the log flume several times, I thought it was funny just to buy this photo, and it just sums up my experience at the park. I couldn't believe I was at this park in Mexico City with almost every single ride closed when I could have been at Six Flags Mexico instead. One of the most awkward on-ride photos to me is always on a shooting dark ride. For me, I'm always hyper-focused on hitting the targets, so I never have the most flattering face. This is a perfect example on Buzz Lightyear at Magic Kingdom. Both my sister and I are just in awe trying to hit the targets, and I just laugh at this photo how bad it came out. Meanwhile, in Space Mountain, they do the on-ride photo on the pre-lift, and everyone knows when that is. So as a result, on Halloween last year, my friend dressed as Jack Sparrow, I had my Slinky Dog hat ready to pose, and my girlfriend looked too. I don't know what type of face I was making, but it had turned out to be funny. I think I was trying to get my eyes as big as Slinky Dog's. I have a huge stockpile of photos from Disneyland Resort. Because I get Max Pass, a side benefit of that awesome Fast Pass system is you get unlimited photos from PhotoPass. This is one from Radiator Springs Racers that I really like. Everyone knows that dogs like sticking their head out the window. There's nothing like feeling the wind in your face. So Slinky Dog had to do it. On Incredicoaster, I have 2 funny poses with Slinky Dog. On the one on the left, I had Slinky Dog sitting on that partition in the middle of the train, so it looks like he's just standing there, but in reality, I'm holding his little body in the back so he doesn't come free. In the photo on the right, I just happen to be holding Slinky Dog in such a way that it looks like I was putting the hat of Mr. Incredible in the photo frame. I found that sort of funny. But some of my favorite on-ride photos come from Splash Mountain. Usually when I visit Disneyland, I go in the spring or winter. And the weather's still warm for me. It's usually in the high 60s, low 70s, sometimes 80 degrees. But I guess that's cold for Southern Californians because Splash Mountain is almost always a walk-on. On the photo on the left, I got suckered into the front row. If you know anything about the front row in Disneyland Splash Mountain, it's that you get absolutely drenched. My girlfriend bought a poncho for the occasion, and she used me as a human shield, and I came off absolutely drenched. In the one in the middle, this was an instance where the ride had absolutely no line at the end of the night, and so my friend and I went on, and I put Slinky Dog on the seat ahead of me, and we got a nice photo of all of us together. The one on the right was one of the times I went to Disneyland, and I thought it was perfectly warm. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Meanwhile, everyone else in the park thought it was way too cold to ride Splash Mountain, so I just stayed on the ride a few times at the end of the night. It was my dream come true. Last but not least, I have quite a few photos from Space Mountain at Disneyland. The one on the left, I was holding this weird alien creature up in the air. It looked almost like a Slinky Dog, but I had never seen anything like that traveling through space. The one in the middle, I had Slinky Dog just hanging on the train. Again, much like the Incredicoaster photo, I was holding his body, so it was no risk of coming loose. I couldn't risk damaging that hat. Now, the photo on the right is sort of funny if you know the story around it. This was the last weekend Disneyland was open before it was shut down due to coronavirus. As a result, the park was dead. I got a Zen ride in Space Mountain. That never happens. So those are my favorite on-ride photos that I've ever gotten at amusement parks over the years. What are some of your favorite photos? I'd love to hear about them down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you gave it a like and considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.